My brother stood up at the head of our dead father's Thanksgiving table, tapped his wine glass with a fork, and announced to the whole family, "Mom and Dad signed the house over to me before they passed. Vivian gets nothing. She's really just a guest here now." 14 people at that table, my aunts, my cousins, my own 2 nephews, and every single one of them looked at me, the daughter, the soldier, home 11 days from a 14-month deployment, the way you look at someone who's already been evicted and just doesn't know it yet. I set down my fork. "That's interesting, Bradley," I said, "because Dad's been gone 8 months and Mom 11, and this is the first anyone's mentioned a signed house." "It's all legal, Viv," my brother smiled, that wide, florid smile he'd been smiling his way out of trouble with since we were kids. "You were overseas. Things got handled while the adults were here." While the adults were here. I looked down the length of my father's table, the table he'd built in his own garage the year I was born, the table I'd done homework at, the table where he'd cried the day I got my commission, and I understood, with the cold clarity that 14 months in a combat zone gives you, that my brother had just made a very specific mistake. He'd announced it publicly, with witnesses, before he'd checked whether I'd actually read the will. Because I had, 2 days ago. And the will Marcus Webb read to me in his office, the real one, the one my father signed and I have a certified copy of in a safe 2 counties over, says nothing about the house going to Bradley. It says something else entirely, something my brother in 8 months of confidence had never once imagined I already knew. So I picked my fork back up. "You're right," I said pleasantly. "Let's not ruin Thanksgiving. Pass the potatoes, Bradley." My brother passed the potatoes. He thought he'd won. "Let me take you back and show you the whole thing, because you deserve to see it built the way I saw it, brick by brick, lie by lie, before I show you what came down. I need you to understand my family before you can understand that table. There were 2 of us, Bradley, 7 years older, and me, and from the time I could walk, the family had assigned us our parts. Bradley was the son, and I was the one who left. I left at 18 for the Army, and I never really came back, not the way you're supposed to. Deployments, duty stations, a life measured in orders and continents. I called home every Sunday I could. I sent money when Dad's pension ran thin. I flew back for the surgeries, both of Mom's hips, Dad's heart, but I was always the one who left, and Bradley stayed, and stayed close, and stayed circling, and somewhere in those years, staying close curdled into something else. Bradley managed things. That was the family word for it. He managed Dad's accounts after the heart surgery. He managed the sale of Mom's car when she stopped driving. He managed their move into the single-story house on Beckett Street when the stairs got hard. And every time I asked a question from 8,000 miles away, just a small one, just a daughter's question, the answer came back the same. "You're overseas, Viv. Don't worry about it. It's handled." It's handled. In my family, those 2 words were a door closing. Mom passed first, 11 months ago, while I was 3 months into deployment. They wouldn't fly me home for a parent's death outside the immediate emergency window. That's not how it works, whatever movies tell you. And I said goodbye to my mother over a satellite phone in a plywood hut, with Bradley holding the receiver to her ear. I'll never know if she could hear. Dad passed 3 months later. Same deployment, same plywood hut, same brother holding the phone. And in the 90 days between my mother's death and my father's death, while I was on the other side of the planet, unable to fly home, unable to see a document, unable to do anything but trust, my brother was very, very busy. I didn't know that yet. I found it out 11 days ago when I finally came home, walked into my father's lawyer's office to sign the estate paperwork I assumed was routine, and watched Marcus Webb's face change when I said my brother's name. "Major Cross," the old lawyer said slowly, taking off his half-moon glasses. "What exactly has your brother told you is in your father's will?" He told the whole family Dad signed the house over to him before they passed. Marcus Webb was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood, walked to a locked cabinet, and pulled a file with my father's name on the tab. He set it in front of me and opened it to a document I recognized instantly, because my father's signature is a thing I would know anywhere. The hard downstroke on the W, the little flourish he was secretly proud of. "This is your father's last will and testament," Marcus said, "executed 14 months ago, before your deployment, witnessed by myself and my paralegal. It has never been revoked, amended, or superseded because your father never came back to this office after you shipped out, and I would know because I am the only attorney who holds it." He tapped the page. "Read the distribution clause, Major Cross. Out loud, if you would. I want to watch you read it." I read it. "The house on Beckett Street and the entirety of the residuary estate to be divided equally between my 2 children, Bradley Walter Cross and Vivian Ann Cross, share and share alike." Equally, share and share alike. "There's no clause giving Bradley the house," I said. "There is not. He told 14 people at Thanksgiving Mom and Dad signed it to him." Marcus Webb sat back down, folded his hands, and looked at me over the half-moon glasses with the expression of a man who has spent 40 years watching families do this to each other and has never gotten used to it. "Major Cross, the 8 months since your father died, your brother has come to this office 4 times. Each time he's asked me to confirm a version of the estate in which he receives the house. Each time I've told him what I'm telling you. The will is equal, it is valid, and it stands. Twice he brought his wife. Once he brought a different attorney, a young man from 2 towns over, who, upon reading the actual will, advised your brother, in front of me, to stop." He paused. "Your brother did not stop. He simply changed audiences. He stopped convincing me and started telling the family a story instead. Because he understood something, Major, that I want you to understand too." "Which is?" "A lie doesn't need to be legal," Marcus said quietly. "It only needs to be believed by the person who'd otherwise fight it. He wasn't building a case, he was building your isolation. If everyone at that table believes the house is his, and you believe you've already lost, then no one ever files anything, and possession does the rest. In 8 months, he's had the locks changed, moved his family in, and started calling it his address on official mail. You know what 9/10 of the law is?" "Possession," I said. "Possession," he agreed, "and your brother has spent 8 months manufacturing it while you were unreachable, unable to see a document, and, forgive me, presumed by your family to be too far away or too grief-stricken to fight." I sat in that office with my father's real signature in front of me, and I felt the deployment calm settle over me like a coat, the thing that happens when the confusion burns off, and what's left is just the mission, clean and cold. "Marcus," I said, "I need 3 things." The old lawyer picked up his pen. Something in him, I think, had been waiting 8 months for someone to say exactly that. "Name them." "First, a certified copy of the real will, today. I'll put it somewhere Bradley can't reach." "Done." "Second, everything my brother's touched, the deed history on Beckett Street, any recorded documents, any transfers, any filings, any change of ownership he tried to record. If he told the family it's signed to him, he may have tried to make that true somewhere on paper." Marcus wrote that down slowly. "And the third thing?" I looked at my father's signature, the hard downstroke on the W. "Third," I said, "I need you to do absolutely nothing that tips him off. No letters, no calls. As far as my brother knows, I came home, I was sad, I believed him, and I'm just a guest at the table now. I want him comfortable, Marcus. I want him confident. I want him to keep doing exactly what he's doing." "Why?" "Because a confident man keeps making moves," I said, "and every move he makes while he thinks he's already won is another piece of evidence with his fingerprints on it." I stood and picked up the file. "My father spent 30 years teaching me that you never let the enemy know what you know. Bradley just told 14 witnesses his whole plan. The least I can do is let him keep talking." Marcus Webb walked me to the door, and as I left, the old man said something I've thought about many times since. "Your father asked me once, when he made this will, why he was splitting everything equally when Bradley was the one who stayed close." He looked at me. "Do you know what he said when I asked if he was sure?" "No."
He said, "Marcus, the one who stays close isn't always the one who stays true. Vivian will know what to do when the time comes. She's the one who runs towards the fire." Marcus opened the door. "Welcome home, Major. I believe the time has come."
The county recorder's office was open until 4:30, and I was there by 2. I want to tell you about public records, because most people don't know their own power. Deeds, liens, transfers, filings, in this country, they're public. Anyone can walk in, ask for the history on a property, and read every document ever recorded against it. My brother was counting on me not knowing that. He was counting on the soldier being a stranger to the paperwork. He forgot who raised us. Our father spent his life as a county surveyor. I grew up doing homework in rooms exactly like this one. I filled out the request slip for the full recorded history of the property on Beckett Street, and a patient clerk named Dennis brought me a folder, and I sat at a laminate table and read my brother's 8 months in chronological order. It was all there. 2 months after Dad died, Bradley had recorded a quitclaim deed. I knew what it was before I finished reading it, a document transferring the house from the estate of Walter Cross to Bradley W. Cross, signed, notarized, and stamped into the public record. On its face, it looked legitimate. It looked like exactly what he'd told the family. The house, signed over, legal. Except, an estate can't just deed away its main asset because one heir wants it to. Not while there's a will in probate splitting that asset 2 ways. For this quitclaim to be valid, it needed authority, a court order, or the signed consent of the executor, or the agreement of both heirs. I was one of the 2 heirs. I had signed nothing. I was in a plywood hut on another continent. So I read the signature block, and there, under grantor on behalf of the estate, was a signature. Mine, Vivian A. Cross. My name in a hand that was not mine, notarized by a notary whose stamp I photographed, on a date I could prove, with deployment orders, with a leave and earning statement, with the sworn logs of an entire forward operating base. I was 8,000 miles away and had not set foot in this county. My brother hadn't just lied to the family. He'd forged a federal... No, I made myself slow down, the way you slow down when the target's finally in view, and the worst thing you can do is rush. He'd forged my signature on a legal instrument, notarized it, and recorded it into the public record to steal my half of my parents' house. That's not a family disagreement. That's forgery. That's fraud. And a forged signature, notarized by a notary who never saw me sign, meant somebody committed notary fraud too, which meant either the notary was in on it or Bradley had lied to the notary, and either way, that notary had a commission, a bond, and a whole lot to lose. I photographed every page, twice. I requested certified copies, official, sealed, admissible, and I asked Dennis the clerk one more question. If someone believed a recorded deed was fraudulent, who would they talk to? Dennis didn't blink. County recorder's clerks have seen everything. District Attorney's Office has a real estate fraud unit, and if a notary's involved, the Secretary of State licenses them. They investigate their own. And honestly, he lowered his voice, if the signature's forged and you can prove where you were, that's not a maybe, that's a Tuesday. That's a Tuesday. I drove home, to the motel I was staying in because I would not sleep under a roof my brother had stolen, and I sat on the edge of a stiff mattress and I built my timeline the way my father taught me and the Army perfected. And I made one phone call I hadn't planned on, not to a lawyer, to my nephew, because there was a piece of this that wasn't about deeds, and it had been sitting in my chest since Thanksgiving dinner, and it was this. My brother had 2 sons, 11 and 14, and at that table, when Bradley announced I was just a guest now, his 14-year-old Cody had not laughed with the others. Cody had looked at his plate, and then Cody had looked at me, and there was something in a 14-year-old's face that I recognized because I'd worn it myself at that table 30 years ago. The face of a kid who's figured out that the loudest person in the family is lying and doesn't know what to do with that knowledge and is very, very alone with it. Cody answered on the third ring, his voice low, a bedroom door closing in the background. "Aunt Viv? Hey, bud. I'm not going to ask you to do anything. I just want you to know something, okay? Whatever happens in this family the next few weeks, none of it is your fault and none of it is your job to fix. You're a kid. Your only job is to be one." Silence. Then, very quietly, "Aunt Viv, Grandpa's signature, the one Dad practices in his office, he's got a whole page of them. I've seen it. He practices writing Grandpa's name and yours." The motel room went very still. "Cody," I said carefully, "I need you to not touch that page and not mention it to anyone, and just be a kid. Can you do that for me? Is Dad in trouble?" And there it was, the real question, the one under all of it. I closed my eyes. "Bud, your dad made his own trouble, a long time before tonight. None of it is yours to carry. But a page of practiced signatures in a locked office in a house that was legally half mine. My brother had left the evidence in the one building he was sure I'd never set foot in again. He was about to be very wrong about that. I did not break into my father's house to get that page. I want to be very clear about that because it matters, and because my brother would spend a great deal of energy later trying to claim I did. I did something better. I made it official. The morning after Cody's call, I sat across from a woman named Priya Chandra in the district attorney's real estate fraud unit, and I laid it out the way I'd brief a colonel. Chronological, sourced, no editorializing. The real will, the forged quitclaim deed, my deployment orders proving I was overseas on the recording date, the notary's stamp, and a 14-year-old statement which I did not push because you protect the kid first, always. I simply told her the page existed and where. Priya Chandra listened without interrupting, which is how I knew she was good, and at the end she said, "Major Cross, I'm going to ask you something and I need an honest answer. Do you want your brother prosecuted?" I'd been dreading that question 11 days. "I want my parents' will honored. I want my half of the house they worked their whole lives for. And I want my brother to stop lying to the family. Stop teaching his sons that this is how you treat blood. Stop turning my father's table into a place where forgery gets a toast." I paused. I'm not going to pretend a forgery is a misunderstanding to keep the peace. I've kept that kind of peace my whole life. It only ever cost me. Priya nodded slowly. "Then here's how this works. A forged, notarized, recorded deed isn't a family matter, and it isn't something you and your brother work out. It's a crime that's already been committed, in the public record, with his name on the filing. My office handles it from here. What I need from you is your documentation and your patience, and what I need from you most," she leaned forward, "is for your brother to not know we're coming. Can you keep the peace at the table a little longer? I've been keeping it for 11 days. I can keep it through Christmas." I kept it through Christmas. That's the part people find hardest to believe when I tell this story, that I sat through 6 more family gatherings knowing what I knew. Bradley, expansive and lord of the manor, giving tours of his house. Sharon, his wife, redecorating my mother's living room, boxing up my mother's things for donation while I watched and said nothing, because Priya had asked for patience, and my father had taught me that the fire you run toward is not always the fire that's shouting loudest. I'll tell you the hardest moment. Christmas Eve, Sharon handed me a small wrapped box, sweet as anything, and inside was a keychain, a little house charm, and she said, smiling, "So you'll always remember the old place, Viv, since you're doing so well out there in the world, and you don't really need roots the way Bradley's boys do." 14 people watched me unbox it, watched me understand the message. You are the one who left. You get a souvenir. The house is ours. I said, "Thank you, Sharon. It's thoughtful." And I meant to add it to the file, and I did, because a keychain given to establish that I had accepted my own disinheritance is, believe it or not, evidence of a narrative, Priya's word, and every artifact of that narrative was another brick in the wall around my brother. I put the keychain in an envelope, dated it, and wrote on the front, "Exhibit S. Sharon, Christmas Eve, souvenir. My father's daughter. I chart things too." But I want to tell you about the other thing that happened that Christmas, the thing that wasn't evidence, the thing that was the actual point underneath all the paper. Cody found me on the back porch. 14 years old, hands jammed in his hoodie, breath fogging. He stood next to me on the railing for a while, not talking, the way boys that age do when something's too big for the front door of a sentence.
They didn't arrest him on the porch. That's television again. They served him a target letter, a notice that the recorded quitclaim deed was under criminal investigation for forgery and fraud, and a request for a voluntary interview he'd have been a fool to accept, and being Bradley, accepted anyway. I know what happened in that interview because it became part of the record. My brother did the thing that confident men do when the ground first shifts. He talked. He explained. He was helpful. He told the investigators that, of course, the deed was legitimate, that I had consented, that I had signed. And when they asked how I'd signed a document recorded on a date I was demonstrably deployed 8,000 miles away, my brother, for the first time in his life, ran out of story. He asked for a lawyer. Too late. The transcript already had him claiming I signed. And then Bradley did the second thing cornered men do. He came for me directly. He showed up at my motel that night, pounding on the door, and I opened it with my phone already recording. I'm my father's daughter, and I let him say every word. "You did this. You couldn't just let it go. Mom and Dad wanted me to have that house. Everyone knows it. I'm the one who was here." "Then why forge my name?" I said it quietly. "If they wanted you to have it, the will would say so. It doesn't. It splits everything equally. You didn't forge my signature because Dad wanted you to have the house. You forged it because he didn't." That stopped him. For 1 second, under the fluorescent motel light, I saw my actual brother, not the loud man from the head of the table, but the boy who'd always needed to be the one who won, and had never once in his life figured out that the winning wasn't the thing he was actually missing. "You were never here," he said, and his voice cracked. "I left. I stayed. I did the surgeries and the accounts and the move and I earned that house, Vivian. Where were you?" And there it was, the oldest wound in the family, finally out loud. "I was where they sent me," I said, "serving. And I sent money for those surgeries, Bradley. I paid for Mom's second hip. I have the transfers. I called every Sunday. I grieved both of them over a satellite phone in a plywood box while you held the receiver." My own voice held. Barely. "You didn't earn the house by staying. You just decided that staying made you owed. And when the will said otherwise, you forged my name instead of asking yourself whether Dad might have known exactly what he was doing." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means Dad split it equally on purpose," I said. Marcus asked him. Dad said the one who stays close isn't always the one who stays true. I watched that land. He knew you, Bradley. He loved you, and he knew you, and he built the will so you couldn't do exactly what you did. You just did it anyway and got caught because you never once imagined the guest at the table could read a deed. My brother stood in that doorway a long time. Then he said the last thing he ever said to me that wasn't through a lawyer. "They'll take my house." Not our parents' house, not the family home, my house. Even then, even at the end. "Bradley," I said, and I was so tired, and underneath the tired was a grief for something that had died long before our parents did. "It was never yours." I closed the door. Here is how it ended, in the order it ended, because you've earned the accounting. The forged deed was voided by the court. A forged instrument conveys nothing. It never legally existed. The house returned to the estate, and the estate distributed it per the actual will, equally, share and share alike, to Bradley and to me. Which meant, in the strange arithmetic of consequences, that my brother did end up owning half the house, his half, the half he'd have all along if he'd simply let the will stand. All he did, the lie at the table, the forged signature, the notary, the criminal exposure, all of it to try to steal a half he never was going to lose. That's the part I still can't fully hold. He burned his life down to take something no one was ever going to keep from him. The criminal side was Priya's, not mine. Bradley pleaded forgery and recording a fraudulent instrument. He avoided prison, first offense, restitution, and the notary's testimony that he'd lied to her about my presence. He got probation, a felony record, and a permanent stain on the one thing he'd spent his whole life protecting, which was the family image of Bradley, the son who stayed. The notary lost her commission. She'd notarized a signature she never witnessed on Bradley's word, an expensive lesson in whose word you take. Sharon filed for divorce within the year, not, I think, out of principle, out of arithmetic. And me? I sold my half of the house to Bradley, fair market value, every dollar documented, handled through Marcus, clean. I didn't want to live in a house that cost my family this much. I wanted my parents' actual inheritance, which was never the house at all. I'll tell you what that inheritance turned out to be, and it's about Cody, in the last part, because the deed and the trial weren't the end of the story. The end of the story is a boy who watched, and what he decided the word family was going to mean. Cody called me the week after the plea, and his first words were, "Aunt Viv, is it true you sold Dad your half so he could keep the house?" "It's true." "But he stole from you. He forged your name, and you just let him have it?" I was quiet a moment, choosing this carefully, because I understood I wasn't answering a question. I was writing something into a 14-year-old that would still be there when he's 40. I didn't let him have anything, Bud. I made him buy it at full price with a court and 2 lawyers watching. That's not letting go. That's making the truth win on the record, and then choosing what I actually wanted more than being right. I paused. I wanted to be done, Cody. I wanted my parents' real gift, which was never a building, and I didn't want you growing up in a family at war, watching your dad and your aunt fight for walls for the next 10 years. You've watched enough." He was silent for a while. "Then, Grandpa really said that? That the one who stays close isn't always the one who stays true?" "He did." "How'd he know? About Dad?" "Parents know, Cody. They just love you anyway, and they try to build things, wills, rules, guardrails, that protect you from your own worst parts. Your grandpa couldn't make your dad honest, so he did the next best thing. He made a will your dad couldn't cheat without getting caught." I let that sit. Your grandpa lost that round in a way. Your dad cheated anyway. But he also kind of won it, didn't he? Because here we are, and the truth held, and you're on the phone with me asking the right questions instead of learning the wrong lessons. "Yeah," Cody said. Then quieter. "I don't want to be like Dad." "Then don't be," I said. "It's genuinely that simple and that hard. You watch what he did, and you do the opposite, and every single time you're tempted to lie your way out of something small, you remember this year. That's it. That's the whole inheritance, Bud. Not the house. This." That was 3 years ago. Bradley and I are not reconciled. I want to be honest about that, because these stories always want to end with a hug at a table, and real life more often ends with a quiet, permanent distance that's healthier than the closeness ever was. We're cordial at the 2 or 3 events a year we can't avoid. He has never apologized. Men who forge signatures rarely develop the muscle for it, and I've stopped needing him to. I forgave him, but forgiveness isn't a bridge you have to walk back across. Sometimes it's just setting down a weight you were tired of carrying. He can be free of my anger and still not be in my life. Both things are allowed. Cody is 17 now. He's applying to colleges. He wants to study accounting, of all things, so nobody can ever do to anybody what Dad did, at least not on my watch. And he calls me every couple of weeks, and last month he asked me to look over his personal essay, and it was about a Thanksgiving when he was 14, and a man who stood up and lied, and an aunt who didn't. I cried in a parking lot over that essay. Then I sent him notes on the second paragraph because I'm still me. His little brother, Eli, is doing well too. Sharon has them most of the time now, and to her credit, she's raising them straight. People contain more than their worst moment. I've had to learn that too. And me? I retired from the Army last spring, 20 years, and I bought a small house of my own. My name on the deed, the real one, no forgery, no story, just mine. There's a spare room I've already told Cody is his for any break, any summer, any bad day. My father's old table is in my dining room. I asked for Bradley for it, the one thing I asked, and to his credit, he gave it without a fight, maybe the one clean thing that passed between us. I do my paperwork at it now, the way Dad did, the way I always will. So here's what I know, and then I'll let you go. When someone stands up at the table and tells the whole room a story where you've already lost, do not believe them just because they're loud, and do not fight them just because you're angry. Go quiet. Go to the record. Everything real is written somewhere. Deeds, wills, dates, orders. Liars build with confidence. The truth is built with paper. And paper wins, but only if someone's willing to go get it. And if there's a kid at that table, a quiet one, watching,